came to K-State, finished at K-State. I was a Pike here at K-State. My major was life sciences in undergraduate. They didn't really have a pre-med major when I graduated in '89. Went on to KU to medical school, and then did my residency at the University of Arkansas. Considered doing a couple different sports fellowships, but the opportunity was available to come back to Manhattan and work with Kansas State University and their sports teams. And I thought I couldn't turn that down. So I came here in 1998 and have been here ever since. I'm currently the head team physician for K-State football, K-State men's basketball, K-State volleyball. We have our whole group manages all of K-State sports. So the rest of the docs are all kind of split up between teams. But that's what I do. My practice here is primarily general orthopedics. It consists of adult reconstruction, which is joint replacements, and a ton of sports medicine. That's primarily what I do.
Awesome, thank you. And hi, Christy. We just started, so you actually didn't miss much, but I was kind of giving a quick rundown of how it would go down. It's basically just an informal conversation. I'll be asking you a series of questions, can give your wisdom on us. And if one of the other panelists would like say something that you agree with or have a comment on, feel free to jump in, make it more of a conversation. But all we've done so far was introduction. So if you just want to give us a quick rundown of where you're from, what your major was when you were in school, what chapter you were part of, and then a quick brief update of your professional history so far.
Sure. My name is Christy Thady. I'm originally from Halstead, Kansas, which is a small town, just north of Wichita. My major at K-State was dietetics, and I was part of the Alpha Z Delta House. My current job, so I am the Director of Nutrition Services at Children's Mercy in Kansas City. So for us, that means I oversee all nutrition operations, all of the dietitians, our milk room, our formula room, all the nutrition assessments and education we do throughout 9 or 10 different sites around the Kansas City metro.
All right, awesome, thank you. And then for our next question, why did you guys choose your field? What was the main draw, and what drove you to practice med or health? Whoever wants to go first, whoever wants to go.
Well, I guess I can start. I've wanted to be a doctor since I can remember. My mom has this Dr. Seuss book that I filled out. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I was 4 and I put doctor, and I had asthma as a kid and was in the emergency room a lot, and just found this connection with physicians and medicine. As I got older, the human body and anatomy intrigued me. And so for as long as I can remember, that was kind of my focus. That's what I wanted to do. Didn't really steer into orthopedics till probably my 3rd year of medical school. I was surgical something, but orthopedics of my 3rd year of medical school.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I for a long time, probably since high school, I wanted to be in some sort of medical profession. I went to medical school kind of with the plan to be a primary care doctor in a small town in Kansas, and now I'm a subspecialty surgeon in New York City. So fate has a way of doing that to us. But I think part of that was because I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and so small town primary care was kind of like how I understood medicine. And when I went to medical school, I was exposed to a lot of different fields, and I was kind of drawn to obstetrics and gynecology, partly because I enjoyed the surgery, and especially minimally invasive surgery. Also, I've always had an interest in public health and health systems, and especially how women's health and maternal health are really prone to kind of the realm of public health and policy. And so I kind of veered towards that for those reasons.
Yeah, so I was interested in health and interested in the science and interested in helping people. I knew I did not want to go into medicine, but I knew I wanted to do something that helped people. And I was drawn to nutrition, wellness, and just sort of treating the whole body. And so dietetics was a good fit of being able to help people learn of the science behind nutrition and food. And then I was drawn to pediatrics, which wasn't necessarily my path when I left K-State either. But pediatrics, helping kids, you see the benefit of that right away. And really have, in working in pediatrics, you have the opportunity to sort of help folks throughout the region. And that's been a big draw for me.
Yeah, awesome. I think those are really good points. For our next question, we all know that one of the biggest bonuses of being a part of Greek life is the support that you get around with your group. So I was wondering if you guys could give an example of a time like your fraternity or sorority supported you during a K-State, either academic, professionally, or mentally, spiritually.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit unusual because I came in, I was a junior pledge, had spent the first 2 years at junior college playing ball. And so I came in, I'm in a pledge class with guys that are 2 years younger than me. Um, and I think the way the fraternity supported me in that role was, even though I was not an active member of the fraternity the first semester, they all kind of embraced me knowing I was older. Uh, Probably the best thing they did was because of varsity sports, I didn't have to do K crew or grounds crew. So I didn't have to put the time in the kitchen or cleaning up the outside, and it allowed me then to, when I got home, study and make sure that I was doing well in school.
Yeah, I think there are probably a lot of ways I don't even remember, but I think one thing Greek life did for me was helped me to figure out how to balance um, just like my social life and my academic life, and realizing that there was value in the non-academic portions of my life. I mean, I think especially in a rigorous academic career, it's easy to get sucked into a life that's just almost wholly consumed by your career or school or wherever you're training, and you feel like you're always waiting, like you're always working towards that next goal, that next degree, that next step. And I think Greek life helped me just enjoy college and realize that having a good social life, a life that involved like physical fitness and other aspects, was also a boon for my academic career to just bring some balance into my world.
And I would say, the sorority definitely supported me academically, whether it was provide, quite a few of my classes, definitely early on, there was at least someone else in one of those larger classes. So it really helped me, sort of build, someone to study with and someone to ask questions to. They really, like I said, they really fostered, um, you know, learning good study skills and putting focus on academics along with some of the social aspects. But I also think it helped me build my relationship skills. And so I feel like the sorority supported me, even though I didn't necessarily know it at the time, of just how to talk to people and how to interact with others, and in kind of that large group setting, which I think in healthcare, you're always surrounded by large groups of people. And it really set a foundation of sort of how to maneuver some of those relationships.
Yeah, I think that what Christy said is a really good point, in that I think especially early on in my career, I felt like the academic nature of it and the books were kind of the make it or break it. And I think the further away you get from the classroom environment, the more and more you realize that it's really other things that matter. So like when it comes to, finding partners in your practice or finding mentors or coworkers, like most of the time I'm not concerned with like what your GPA was. I want to know, like, is this a person who I can like get along well with, collaborate with, work with? Are they going to provide good care for our patients? And I think those intangibles of like how to interact and work with other people are just as, if not more important than some of the, more quantitative academic markers.
Yeah, I think the relationship points that you guys brought up are really good, because when you're in Greek life, you're surrounded by a wide variety of different personalities, and you have to manage them all and manage to at least be civil with them, which can be really beneficial in the real world. So good points. Back to like more what Greek life has benefited for you. I know at least for my life, a big thing about Greek life is networking. I've been able to connect with like a lot of different alumni or different Greek life people in different chapters to help set up for internships and jobs. Can you give any example of like how networking within Greek life helped benefit you in your career?
Yeah, for me, I think it's more just about relationships. My career, the networking within Greek life, I don't know if it's had as big of an impact directly with my career, but it certainly has had an impact with me as a person. And staying in touch with my fraternity brothers over the years, coming back for K-State football games, alumni reunions, and they're in all different kinds of fields. I mean, some of them are Silicon Valley, some of them are on the farm in Western Kansas. I mean, the whole gamut. And being able to understand, what they're dealing with, and using the knowledge and their experience we talk about, and also they're from different fields. So I've got friends that are attorneys, fraternity brothers are attorneys, and being able to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I got this contract. What do you think?" I mean, that kind of networking has probably been more important for me personally than, say, professionally within orthopedic surgery.
Yeah, I think those have all been true for me too, and maybe like more closer to my undergrad experience. I found like my fraternal connections to be helpful just in navigating next steps. Like I personally didn't have I've never had any family members who were in medicine, and so when it came time to like apply to medical school, go through medical school, figure out residency, several of my fraternity brothers were in medical school a year or 2 years ahead of me. When I started medical school, there was, multiple women from sororities and men from other houses that I had connected with through IFC and like different leadership groups. And I think having those connections was helpful for me in figuring out like, how do I make this transition to school? How do I adjust? And just having somebody who'd been there recently that I was connected to, I leveraged that quite a bit.
And I would agree with both of what you've said. I think, like you said, Jake, closer to the undergrad experience, navigating internships, definitely knowing someone who knew someone was definitely beneficial. And then I think that as I've gotten further away from my undergrad, just that networking relationship in all other areas of my life, I think has been a bigger impact than necessarily sort of specifically nutrition related.
Thank you. You guys kind of hit on a little bit with like the personal or relationship skills that you guys got through Greek life, but if you could tell me like another skill you guys felt like you developed or gained from your time in Greek life, whether it be, leadership, time management, or anything of the sort like that.
Yeah, I one thing that I still talk about oftentimes is how Greek life kind of created like professional skills for me. Like, gosh, I mean, in any professional world, like it seems like a small thing, but your ability to like go to a professional dinner or a professional lunch, to like make small talk, to find common interests, to engage a person in conversation, to work together with people, like those things, they go a long way. And I think you'd be surprised how many people struggle to get traction professionally because they don't have those kind of fundamental people skills. And I think those have served me really well. Like I can remember being an undergrad and having like some of our alumni from our house that were faculty on campus coming over for dinner, and like, again, it sounds basic, but knowing how to like put on a jacket and tie and like have a conversation with somebody that I've never met who's a professional, that was really intimidating as a 19-year-old. But man, those skills, like, they come in really handy down the road. And so I think those skills have paid off many times over.
Yeah, I agree with Jake, and you know, so it's the people skill. It's learning how to talk to people that are older, more mature, more advanced in their career than you are. At the same time, it's learning how, besides time management, which you mentioned, Jordan, it's, you know, when you're in a close living arrangement like you are in a Greek house, there's always some sort of conflict at some point, and you're friendly to everybody. And let's be honest, we're not friends necessarily with everybody in our house, but learning how to be friendly to everybody, learning how to get along, learning how to, you know, resolve conflict in a way that there's not necessarily a winner and a loser. It's what's best for the group as a whole. And that comes into play every day, whether it's in my office or the operating room or the hospital, whatever setting that comes in my household. Those skills and those the ability to deal with people and deal with them fairly and in a loving way makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I agree with what everyone has said. The only thing I would add to it is I think the other skill that I took away is oftentimes when you're in a fraternity or sorority, there are at least some events where you're trying to navigate a group of people towards a common goal. And everybody has a different thought and everyone has a different feeling. You need to achieve whatever that common goal is, whether it's a homecoming float or planning an activity or the philanthropy, whatever you're doing. And the skills that it takes to navigate a big group of people to finish that goal, those relate to business healthcare. Now I have a team of 75 people that I work with. And so trying to get everyone towards whatever goal that we are trying to achieve, those skills started back when I was in undergrad, even before I probably even recognized it.
All right, awesome. Thank you. What are some tips you have for like current students that are either getting ready to go into medical school or getting ready to look for their first job or an internship? What are some things that you would like, some advice that you give them as they get ready to gear up for that?
You know, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing is, you know, you don't want to be afraid to make a mistake. You don't want to be afraid to fail. You don't want to be afraid to ask questions. We all have our limits, whatever it is. I reached my limit in sports about halfway through college, and so whatever your limit is academically, or whatever your interests are, you have those limits. But there are people that are above you, and you have to realize those people have knowledge and skill sets that you can learn from. And so embrace that and develop those relationships so that you can have the conversations and ask the questions that you need to gain the knowledge or advance in the direction you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty like broad question. Like, I think kind of things I would encourage people to think about, like going into a professional program or going into the workforce kind of at different points might vary a lot. But I think just a couple of points. One is I think especially early on in your career, like an attitude and like a place of humility goes a long ways. You know, like when you are fresh out of training or in like your first professional program, you just don't realize how much you don't know, and you don't realize how much you can learn from people who have been at it for even a short time more than you. And I think that nothing will derail a career or a profession faster than somebody who has just you know, unvalidated sense of themselves. I think it just will really help you to approach your, especially like early career decisions, just out of a place of just humility and a desire to learn and to grow professionally, and to actively like seek out mentors and people to walk down that path with you. Because I think like probably everybody who has been successful on any level in their career can clearly identify the people who have been key for them to get to that point. And so I think just being intentional about that, whether it's like getting into graduate school or, you know, going from medical school to residency or applying for that internship, being very intentional about like finding mentors and kind of putting yourself in a place to really learn from them will go a long ways in any field.
Yeah, I totally agree. A couple things that I would add is oftentimes when you're finished with your academic career, whether you're undergrad, grad school, medical school, what have you, you think maybe your learning might stop. However, once you get into the workforce, that's really where the learning really begins. And so I would advise that anyone, whether it be going on to the next level or going into a job, that's where your learning really begins. And so those I think that are successful are folks that consider themselves sort of lifelong learners that are always looking to learn the next thing. So I would say that. The other thing I would say, and Jay kind of touched on this earlier, is that folks that are really successful tend to be able to take the academic knowledge and applying it to working with people. And so that kind of sweet spot between understanding the science behind what you're doing and then also being able to talk with someone and interact with them, those are really helpful skills in whatever your setting is.
Thank you. That was all really good advice. I know a lot of people that once are upperclassmen, including myself, they're always wondering, you know, what sets people apart when they're looking for internships, jobs, or trying to apply to different like grad school or med school. So what were some things that you guys did while you're at school to set yourself apart from your fellow students? And what are some things that you look for now in people that are applying for jobs or whatever that make them stand out to you?
So kind of through mostly like in my time in residency and in my first, you know, job out of residency, I spent a lot of time on like kind of medical school committees of like student oversight and recruitment. And I always am like humbled because I see students come through medical school and I'm like, wow, if I was applying for medical school today, there's no chance I would get in. Like the things that students are doing and that they have on their resume just blow my mind. But I will say that I think there's a pressure on students to just have like a very extensive resume or CV or just list of accomplishments and accolades. And I think sometimes that pressure really drives people to go overboard in terms of the breadth of their experience, and sometimes it limits the depth of their experience. And so it's not uncommon for me to see medical school applicants or residency applicants who have like, you know, 5 pages of like research and accomplishments. But then when you really start digging into those things, they tend to be like very short-lived or very superficial, and oftentimes don't have a lot of depth behind them. And so one thing I would encourage young people to do is to pick a few things, and really, you know, stick with them. Like I think like having some longevity or some depth with whether that is like a community service activity or a research project or a hobby. I'm always encouraged when I see people who are able to, you know, have discipline and commit to something and really like take ownership of something over time. So I would just, for most people entering into like a competitive professional environment, I would try to resist a little bit of that pressure to just like fill your resume with a whole bunch of things, and instead really, you know, ask the hard question of like, you know, why is this valuable or important to me? And how can you commit yourself to that in a way that like lasts over time and provides some depth? I think that always stands out to me. Like I see a lot of applicants who have, you know, 12 different community service organizations they volunteer with, but it's the ones who have taken on a volunteer role at one or two places and have really like owned that opportunity and shown a commitment to it that always stands out to me.
I think you're spot on, Jake. It's about how they're just trying to check the boxes on how many hours and how many different organizations that they can put on their CV. And and it really is about, I mean, medicine's hard. It's enjoyable, but the long and current on your knowledge base requires a time commitment and an effort. And so you have to find a way to set yourself apart, I think, that shows that there's a work ethic there to work towards something bigger and better than you or whatever you're interested in. But I agree, find something that you're passionate about, and dive and go 1,000 feet deep rather than 1,000 feet wide. There was a commencement address that I listened to a couple of years ago, and the uh, the speaker said, "Well, these you need to have an MBA." And his point was not a master administration, but you have to have a mop bucket attitude, meaning that whatever team you're on or whatever you're a part of, there's not anything that's really below you. You're not, just because you have a title, you're not, doesn't mean you can't get down in the trenches and do the work and pull for the team and do whatever you need to do to roll your sleeves up and make the project or the team successful.
Yeah, and I echo what's already been said. I think if you have had experiences that you truly are passionate about or you truly enjoy, the way that you'll be able to share that information with someone, such as an employer or an internship director or whatever, the passion that you're able to share when you truly love something really does shine through, and that you can't fake that necessarily. So find something that you truly love. The other thing that I think that helps folks stand out is people that really know themselves, that are very self-aware of what they're good at, self-aware of where their shortcomings are, and self-aware of what they are willing to learn or want to learn. I think that helps really show, sort of that humble nature that can lead to success.
Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, what have you enjoyed personally the most about your job or a job you've had in the past?
Well, the stock answer is helping people when you're in healthcare, right? But everybody wants to do that. For me personally, it's the continued knowledge and the continued learning, whether it's how to manage something medically, how to manage something surgically, learning a less invasive technique like Jake talked about in the surgical profession. It's that continued learning that hopefully by doing that, you're going to benefit your patients in the future. And so that's probably what I enjoy most, is just the challenge of staying current and staying on at the forefront of what's occurring in medicine. Because and I've been here 22 years in Manhattan, and there are very, very few things surgical wise that I do today, that probably less than 10%. The technique that I use today is the same technique I used 22 years ago. So there's this continuum of learning, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, I think that I'm supposed to say helping people. I think that's right. And that is true. I think like one thing that I've realized in my career is that at some point your job is going to become it's going to become old hat. And this, like, yes, you're going to like learn new things and learn new techniques, but the things that when you are first exploring careers, like I remember the first time I was in the operating room and I thought like, oh my gosh, this is so cool and amazing. Um, and while I still think the operating room is cool and amazing, it doesn't have that shininess to it anymore. You know, like I go to the operating room most days of the week. And so I think that it's important to really identify things that are more, you know, more intangible, that can continue to drive you professionally. Personally, a huge part of that for me is just the constant interaction with, like, I guess I would deem it like collaboration with other professionals. I'm constantly amazed at the energy and the intelligence and the capability of people that I encounter in my professional career. And I'm super interested in it. Like when I meet new people, whether those people are from like other disciplines of medicine or on the business side of medicine or in leadership, I'm just always fascinated by how many different professions and different backgrounds and different people are required to make healthcare happen. And so I find a tremendous amount of satisfaction and enjoyment in my job just by like working with talented and fun people. I think that kind of like personal nature of it is really fun for me. Because you know, there's days where the operating room wears me out, and I think that on those days I'm thankful for like the people that I work with and that I get to know, and so I think that carries me in days when the other things don't.
So my job, the best part of my job is I get to work at a children's hospital. I get to work with kids all day. And who doesn't like that? That's great. You get to see kids get better and grow up. Our whole job in pediatric nutrition is to help kids grow as typically as possible, regardless of what they have going on. And so when you see that happen, or you, see a child doing well that wasn't before, that's extremely satisfying. So definitely working with the kids is great fun, and we get to really see an impact right away. The other thing I really like about my job, and is one of the reasons why I am at Children's Mercy here in Kansas City, is the innovation that's available. It's really an environment that's encouraging, whether it be physicians, nurses, dietitians, whomever, other healthcare providers, to come up with something new that can help kids. And they really take those ideas serious, and it's really impacted some of the care that we provide throughout the hospital. So I've really enjoyed that piece.
I will say that every time I'm in a pediatrics hospital, I'm like, why do I not work here? Like it has like color and energy and good vibes, and I'm always a little bit jealous of the people who go to work in the children's hospital every day.
Yeah, that is true. I often think, why don't adult hospitals, or why aren't they brighter? Why don't they do color? Adults like Mickey Mouse too. Why not?
Probably.
Never too old to like Mickey Mouse. Okay, so for the next question, what is one thing that you wish you would have known during your time at K-State?
Yeah, I think the answer to this probably varies depending on kind of where we are at our stage of our career and where we've been pushed. For me personally, I've gotten into a lot of management things from a business standpoint, with chairing a couple of different boards of the surgery hospital and different things like that. And so as I look back, the one thing I wish I would have known was that I needed some business education, because it's kind of been trial by fire. I'm in private practice, so I run our own business, manage our own business, and do that for a couple of different businesses. And I took no I took no business management classes in college. And looking back, I think I could have benefited from that. But that's just me personally, because of what I've gone into, and it certainly was a deficiency for me as I was trying to catch on as time was going by quickly.
Yeah, I would love to talk. I would love to talk to you about that perspective in like the private practice, like business arena. I remember being at K-State as an undergrad, and it was at the time I was at K-State, they were just beginning like the leadership studies program. And I remember there was like, you could have a leadership studies minor, and one of the courses was organizational culture. And I remember thinking like, man, that is some baloney. Like what, I mean, what is that? Is that even, does that even matter? Is that even a thing? And now every day I'm like, oh, organizational culture is so important. Like this has so much bearing on my life as a professional, and even like how we provide care for patients. And I think probably all three of us would label leadership and people management as really important things that I would similarly like maybe wish that I had understood the implications of like business and administration and how they relate to healthcare and the medical profession. I think the only other thing I would add to that is I think when I was in undergrad, I was a pre-med major, so I did spend time, I spent time studying. I like kept my grades up. But I don't think I really had an appreciation for how much my academic credentials could either make or break um, my, especially the early part of my professional career. In that, um, I think like I've seen, and it's not just academic credentials, meaning like where did you go to school and what your GPA was, but I think the idea of having the skills to study and aggregate knowledge and discipline yourself to like learn material and work hard, those really pay off. I mean, if you don't develop those skills early on, you are just going to struggle. And so although I think everybody's an individual, and some college students, I want to say, hey, like you need to get out of the classroom and enjoy yourself some. But I do think there's another end to that spectrum to say like, being able to succeed academically, it is important. And developing those skills of like study habits, learning, acquisition, self-discipline, those will go a long way to help you out also. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Jake. Those deficits show themselves pretty quickly early in medical school, and then when you transition to residency, early in residency, if you haven't developed those skills, the people that are teaching you or are serving you will recognize it pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with what's been said. I would definitely have invested more in leadership. I too remember leadership studies coming out, and I remember thinking, what is that? I don't even know. I don't even know what that's about. But I definitely would have invested more in sort of that leadership learning and sort of that organizational development, like Jake said.
All right, so for our last question, it's more of a lighthearted one. But what is everyone's favorite brotherhood or sisterhood memory? It can be while you're during your time at school or after.
Gosh, for me, it would be, well, we had wet houses back then, so the parties were always fun. But for me personally, was intramural sports. So I played college sports, and then I got done in that spring semester. I got to play intramural sports, and I just absolutely loved it. I was like, man, I missed out on this for the last 4 years. But playing some intramural volleyball and intramural basketball, and what a blast! Intramural softball. Those times playing those sporting events and competing with my brothers was pretty special.
Yeah, I remember like road trips, just because that's not something I really do anymore. I mean, like not in the same way I did in college. That was uniquely fun. I remember a spring break trip where I think there were 7 or 8 of us. We went. Our cook was this like woman named Marge, who was like in her 70s at the time, and she had this timeshare in South Carolina that she offered up to us. And so like 7 or 8 of us guys took our 70-something-year-old cook on a road trip to Edisto Beach, South Carolina, and spent a spring break there. And it was just like one of those completely random trips that, I mean, maybe other people have more exciting lives than me, but for me, I look back on that and I'm like, that was like such a unique time of life. I mean, never again would I have the chance to just like randomly drive across the country with my fraternity cook and spend spring break. So those things felt uniquely special to that season.
I mean, obviously we all enjoyed the football games and the tailgating, and that was great fun with my sorority sisters as well as our, fraternity partners, what have you. But I think my favorite memory was, senior year, when you get to live out a house with your closest friends. I lived in a house with my 4 best friends, who are my 4 best friends today, 20 years later. And so that just was really a special time where we just enjoyed each other's company. We had lots of great fun. Obviously, sorority houses aren't wet, so an outhouse is super fun. But that felt like kind of the tip of the iceberg, with those friendships. Our time at K-State led to so many other fun times, weddings and trips and all the things that come with sort of changes in life. And so I'm, thankful that that time was fun and that I'm still having fun with those people today.
All right, well, those are all the prepared questions I have. If you guys have any questions for each other, any comments, feel free to go take those now. But if not, I want to thank you guys. I know you guys are really busy, so I appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedule to, just share some of your knowledge and experience with, current K-State students. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm here in Manhattan, so if any of the students have questions or want to sit down, feel free to give them my email, and I'm available. We have students shadow us in our office, and if after they've done that a little bit, we oftentimes can arrange for them to shadow in the operating room. So if anybody has anything like that, I'm right here in Manhattan to be available and helpful.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm not local. I'm in Manhattan, but it's a little bit more of a trip up here. But yeah, if anybody reach out, I'm happy to meet over Zoom or phone call. Always happy to help.
Same. Kansas City is not local to Manhattan, but close enough. And so I too am available for anyone interested, obviously, in going into nutrition, dietetics, or healthcare.
All right, again, thank you, and have a good evening.
You too. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Take care.
All right, thanks. Bye.